Everybody's dying to know about the regulations, right?
Yep.
VR7. Correct.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the March 19th Milford Planning and Zoning Board. If we could please stand for the pledge and a moment of silence. Thank you. Meg, if you would please call the roll.
Mr. Hirsch and Mr. Sadi are excused. Mr. Agnesi?
Present.
Mr. Anderson?
Present.
Mr. Alling?
Present.
Mr. Collegian?
Present.
Mr. Macchio?
Here.
Mr. Mortimer?
Present.
Mr. Zahridis?
Present.
And Chairman Quish.
I'm here as well. First order of business, the 104 Edgewater Place is on the agenda, but there'll be no action taken until we hear the results of the Harbor Commission, which I believe is this Thursday. So at our next meeting, we should be able to pick that back up. The next order of business is a public hearing closed by May 23, 24, vote by June 27, 24. Proposed regulation change 23-15, petition of the Zoning Board for a change of the Milford Zoning Regulations, Article 5, Section 5.1.4, Figure 4, off-street parking, multiple family dwellings. David, if you could brief us on the reason for this.
The reason for this is the state of Connecticut and the legislature has changed the requirements for parking, and they are basically telling all of the municipalities that you cannot park something at a higher level than what they specify. So in our case, that means that for an efficiency apartment, we used to, depending on the zone, require as much as 1.5 to 2 spaces. We can now just require 1. For a 1-bedroom unit, 1 space, and for a 2-bedroom unit, 2 spaces, and a 3-bedroom unit, 2 spaces. And this only affects what we would call multifamily dwellings, which are usually, the apartment buildings, anything above, 3 units and above.
Thank you. So that is really just verbatim what the state regulations are allowing us, and no more, no less.
Correct. You can, as a board, yeah, that's it, yeah.
So are there any questions or comments from the board? At this time, we'll open the public hearing. If anyone would like to speak, come up to the podium or the chair. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. And without further discussion, I would hear a motion. John.
I move to approve, as presented, the petition of the Planning and Zoning Board for a change to Milford Zoning Regulations, Article 5, Section 5.1.4, Figure 4, off-street parking, multiple family dwellings. Majority of the entire board, whether not all members are present, 6 is needed for it to pass.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Anderson.
Just a quick question of Mr. Sulkus. Since some of us are relatively new to the board, I'm wondering about which agencies we normally contact and by way of record. I noticed that in this case, we sent a copy to the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, to Metro COG, and to the South Central Planning Agency. Is that the normal course?
That is the normal course, yes.
Thanks very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure. Any further questions or comments? Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Meg, if you would please call the roll.
Mr. Agnesi?
With the motion.
Mr. Alling?
With the motion.
Mr. Anderson?
With the motion.
Mr. Collegian?
With the motion.
Mr. Machio,
With the motion.
Mr. Mortimer,
With the motion.
Mr. Zachariadis,
With the motion.
and Chairman Quish.
With the motion, motion passes. Next order of business is proposed regulation change 24-1, petition of the Planning and Zoning Board for a change to Milford zoning regulations, Article 3, Section 311, permitted uses, and 312, special uses, group daycare homes. David, again, if you would brief us on the reason for this.
Once again, there was a change in the state statutes that basically has told municipalities that certain kinds of group homes and daycares cannot be treated any differently than a single-family home. So in our particular case, we had treated group daycare homes and adult group daycare homes as special permits. So for at least the group daycare homes, we are putting them into just the regular category that a house would come under, which is by right.
Great, thank you.
And
Are there any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, this is a public hearing. If anyone would like to speak, please come up. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Any discussion on the motion?
And Mr. Chair, I just want to let you know that there's going to be probably some adjustments, perhaps to this language or some other language in the regulations fairly soon, just because there was another review that was done by the city attorney's office, and they are thinking now there should be some other adjustments. But having said that, the recommendation is that this board should move forward with approving this tonight, and any changes, if recommended, will be made in the near future.
Understood. Is there any questions or comments with regard to what David just said there? Seeing none, the public hearing is closed. We'll go to the vote. Meg, if you would call the roll. Did we have a motion? Oh, sorry. We have a motion.
I move to approve, as presented, the petition of the Planning and the Zoning Board for a change to Milford zoning regulations, Article 3, Sections 3.1.1, permitted uses, and 3.1.2, special uses, group daycare home. 6 votes needed to pass.
Motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Meg, please call the roll.
Mr. Agnesi,
we're talking about this.
Yep.
You know, it's because of 830G, and, you know, I'm not sure everybody knows exactly what 830G is and the percentages and all that, and why we're.
Okay, yeah, I mean,
Why
I think that there's more than one reason to do it. One is to prevent 830G from changing the fabric of different neighborhoods. So 8-30G is a state statute that comes into effect if a town does not have 10% deed restricted, and there's other language there that will tell you what an affordable unit is. If we have less than 10% in this town, for example, and we do not, we're 5.7 or whatever we are percent, then local developers can come in and build multifamily developments, and they do not have to abide by any planning and zoning regulations. So for lot coverage and parking and setbacks, and in single-family neighborhoods where without 8-30G, they would not be able to build a multifamily, but with 8-30G, now they're enabled to do that through this legislation. So if we can get to 10%, then 8-30G does not come into effect. So it's a fairly long-term proposition, and there's more than one way to get there. There's also a genuine need for affordable housing. So there are people, if we just talk about our local interests, there's people that are retiring, and it's difficult for them to afford Milford. It's fairly expensive. There's families that have their kids that would like to, they're starting their own families that would like to stay in Milford, and it's fairly expensive. So that we want to encourage affordability, and so it's a two-pronged. We do need the affordable housing, and we want to help promote it, but we also, like Mark said, really want to be able to do it the way we want, and not the way a developer might choose to go in to, say, for example, a single-family neighborhood and build 12 or 15 units on an acre. So if there are, if anybody wants to talk about tweaking those numbers is one thing. If anybody wants to suggest any other paths that we should be exploring to get the affordability that will.
I'm concerned that the way this is written, you're essentially penalizing denser developments. I don't know if it's going to be financially feasible for a lot of developers to come in and put in 20% affordable units or 22% if they're going to try to build something denser. I think that's something we definitely need to take into consideration.
Good point. Yeah, so I think that's one reason why we bring them in. Say, could you swallow 15% instead of 22? And would it be, would the particular project still pencil, or do we need to reach out to the alders and say, by the way, we need to do this. So if someone's going to do 80 units, they're going to put 25% in on their own and abide by all our planning and zoning, why can we possibly get them a tax break or some other carrots? Like, we could think up, okay, if you'll do this in a CDD 3, for example, and there's a 40-foot height restriction, say, well, hey, if you're willing to follow these regulations, we'll let you go to 50 feet. We'll let you get more density. So there'll be ways. I think you're right. You're exactly right. There'll be no development if it doesn't pencil out. So we have to have a carrot. And I don't know if we have that per application or we codify it somehow with like some kind of carrots. John? Oh, shoot. Excuse me, Joe.
Yeah, I just wanted to, excuse me. I just kind of wanted to underline what Mr. Agnesi said, and ties into a lecture that we had the opportunity to attend a little while ago from, I think, the Planning Association, that the inclusionary housing percentages are important, especially as far as 830G, but there's actually a lot of data to show that what really addresses the need in terms of reducing homelessness and reducing home prices is allowing that density. And so being strategic, and things like the parking requirement change that we just did, that was required by the state, are also important to do. And if we are strategic and we zone and plan in such a way that we allow higher density developments in areas where they're best suited, like near transit and near amenities, that would go a long way towards addressing the affordability problem regardless of the inclusionary housing percentages. So they're both very important.
Yeah, very good point. One thing that we did talk about in the subcommittee was that some of the ideas were and in complete alignment with the Plan of Conservation and Development, that we look at our existing zones. Like we have industrial zones, we have office zones that may be suited for housing. They could be near transit. They could have other attributes that make them attractive to the city development and through developers. So one thing we thought of is maybe trying to, instead of grabbing too much at once, start with this one piece, and we can change, you know, if everyone wants to start with choose a zone and talk about housing. But this way, if we can find something that gets us a little bit of a footing all across the city, then I think we will look at each zone, the commercial corridor districts, the industrial zones, the office. We have 3 different office zones, and look at each of those to consider it. We may, whatever, just consider it and discuss it and come up with ideas on what's going to be effective for each of those various zones. And if we want to tweak them at all, so this board would make the decision. And we're probably keeping the subcommittee going to maybe take direction from this board, say, all right, let's look into something. And so the subcommittee can do a little bit of a dive on that, and then bring it back to the board, so to speak. But this will be the board collectively that addresses it. John?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I had a question and a comment. The question is, we currently have a moratorium for 830G. It's already
over.
gone?
It's over.
Okay,
Yeah.
that was the question. When does it expire? So it's already, it's already done. Okay. And the second thing is, it's just a comment. I think mixed use is definitely where we need to go, and I think we need to look at the zones. A lot of office zones, light industrial, would be, I think, a good spot to put in some mixed use and housing, affordable housing. So, thank you.
Great.
I think before we go start making changes, we definitely want to hear from some developers to see if that would even be worth our time.
Great. David, can we get some input for our next meeting? Do we want to have a couple developers, attorney and public advocacy, or do we do them separately, or how much?
I already have,
bite off?
I have one developer who very much would love to chat with you, and I believe he was actually doing a written response based on him watching some of the meetings that the subcommittee that had taken place. So we can definitely get him to the next meeting, or I'll see what his availability is in terms of whether he can come to the meeting here, or if we have to do a special meeting and do a remote meeting. But I would like to, he's a large developer.
Yeah.
And then I want to get some of the smaller developers, and I have asked them, and I believe we'll get at least one of those.
You know what would be good also is possibly, I was talking to a developer recently, and it was a development in another town, but he said they were going to consider selling the units, and he said that they would have to go through the Connecticut Finance Authority to sell a qualifying, sell to be condos instead of apartments. Could we get, whether it's a local real estate attorney or somebody from the state, to really go deep into the specifics of the effects of a development? Can you sell it? Can you sell it, all of it? Can you sell part of it? What are the requirements for a tenant that moves out, who gets to move in, and just so we really more fully understand the intricacies of the legislation and how it would affect us and what our future decisions will be.
Yeah, there, again, we have a local attorney who we're going to be using for reviewing our affordability plans, who is supposed to be, and not supposed to be, is an expert and help the city with its moratorium issues. And, I'll ask her to attend that meeting as well.
I think that would probably be good to be the first thing we do. I don't know that we can't do both in a single night, but to put that person, if she's available, or he's available, whoever it is able to sort of give us a fairly in-depth look into the intricacies of the actual legislation. Brian.
Yeah, I would agree with that approach. The other thing that I would add is to have us be thinking about the cost of land. Think about the fact that a major chunk of the cost of any project to bring it about is the land value to begin with. And what the city can do is to provide a list of available sites that they control or that are on the lesser end in terms of expense. And I think it's notable that the city has used its bonding authority mostly for capital projects. But there was a business that recently was able to use the city's bonding authority to be able to expand their footprint and add jobs. And so it's not beyond conceivable that the city can also use their bonding authority to help in the housing and affordable housing area.
Great, thank you. Anybody? Yeah, just pipe up.
Yeah, you brought up the idea of having sellable units as part of our affordable housing, and I absolutely agree with that. My generation is currently facing the brunt of this crisis, where you have young families starting out who want to purchase their homes, and there's just nothing out there. So going off that, if we can make that the focus of our affordability drive, I think that would be phenomenal.
Great, and I think that again, it's going to be a partnership with the city and the political will of the Board of Aldermen and stuff to create programs that assist as well. Whether it's purchase or whether it's underpinning down payment with city guarantees or something for I don't know. There's a million ways to do things. David, were you able to reach out to Fairfield's planner today and find out about what I read in the news today about their program, about how they have addressed some similar concepts to making every development include some affordability?
Yeah, they have a 10%. I think it's across the board, and I believe it's above 20 units and above. I did talk to them, and they were going to get me something, because if you do what I did, which was go visit their regulations, I want to say our regulations are really, really good compared to Fairfield's in terms of how they're laid out and trying to find things in their regulations. So it took their guidance to show me where in their regulations they had placed their references to affordable housing. There's a couple of, it's by zone, and it's in a couple of zones there, mostly by the rail stations. So you would, the developments, the metro, what they call them, I guess the Fairfield Metro rail station. That was, and in their case, that was all formerly industrial land that was going unused, and they decided, since, well, no industrial uses are coming in and no other commercial uses are coming in, that they'd open it up to housing, and that's why they've been successful with that development.
Thank you. Any ideas or anything, any direction that we should be pointing? I guess, David, you do have some data up on the screen. You want to tell us what that is?
Yeah, I just thought you'd want to know what our current...
Could you go right next to the mic for me?
Yeah, I thought you might want to know our exact numbers and where we stand as of 2023 in terms of data. So currently, Milford has 23,749 housing units. And I have to scroll up now. And those are broken down in different ways to be used for affordability. So we have, if I make it smaller, then I can read it without having to scroll back and forth. But you won't be able to see it. Give me 2 seconds. Okay, so of the 23,749 housing units, there are 728 government-assisted units. There are 315 tenant rental assistance units. There are 140 single-family CHAFA USDA mortgages. There are 74 deed-restricted units, and then the total assisted units that we have are 1,257. When they say assisted, I believe that's meant to be set aside, which gives us our total of 5.29% of our housing stock is, again, affordable. And I can pull up any year going back to 2002 on their website that gives us whatever it was that year for that data.
And where is that chart?
This comes directly from the state, from the Department of Housing, and it's called the Affordable Housing Appeals Listings.
Thank you.
Yep.
And can you carve that single page out and distribute it?
Sure.
Great.
I will send you. It's like 3 pages. I'll send you. It's a spreadsheet. It's an Excel spreadsheet that they do. Yeah, I can distribute that.
Very good. Any further ideas for tonight or direction, or shall we just plan to have our next meeting, have someone come in and debrief us on the specifics, and maybe one developer?
Yeah. I can talk to, if you want, like the one big developer, we can do that. And if you'd like the attorney, I can ask her as well.
And then maybe the following meeting, we can get, or you could ask a couple developers. I don't know, it's going to take that much time. So, and then maybe the following meeting, I know we have a
for their community development plan that was talked about last year and released, that had all sorts of great demographic and economic information in it, and maybe that same group could run scenarios based on what we have here and how different proposed changes or different amounts, say if we were to use the spreadsheet as an example, how those amounts may affect the community and the development or lack of development depending on the situation. It's something to consider.
Okay, good idea. If we have the money, we can get the money. Any money left in the POCD budget, Mr. Griffith? Any money left in the pot of money we had for the POCD consultant?
There probably is, as long as the finance department didn't take it back. But I mean, I think we did finish under budget. So,
Okay.
so we can look at that money. And listen, if you want to do a study and we don't have enough money, we can also, ask, the mayor and, the
Yep.
Board of Aldermen.
Do you think we collectively can sort of prioritize which zones we think we would want to address first, or do we want to maybe learn a little bit more about what the developers are thinking? We could, or maybe we just sort of think about that as a prompt for next meeting, where we individually go in and look at the different areas and sort of come up with a pecking order. I'm thinking that we do some kind of a come to terms with whether we want to have every multifamily development have some affordability or not. We'll go down that road until we learn what's best, and then maybe pick one zone at a time and make appropriate changes. Then we would try to prioritize where our instinct tells us the more bang for the buck. So maybe we do that for next week. Everybody just sort of, if they want, just look at the zoning map and think about where they would like to prioritize the next step after we decide whether or not to mandate affordability in all units and then how much.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think we need some time to go over, what different towns are doing and different ways we can get to this 10%. I mean, 5.29%, we got a long way to go.
We do.
So, yeah, I think that's a good plan, I think.
Okay, and so David, if you could, if you poke around and see who you think is doing it well, then we can look at a best practice.
Yep. So what I'm going to do is tomorrow I'm going to reach out to the attorney and a couple of developers to see if they can come to the next meeting. I'm going to be then on vacation and I won't be back till our next meeting, so I won't be able to come up with anything other than try to arrange these people to come in and sort out the agenda for the next meeting. And we have a couple of items that will be on that. So that's what I'll be able to do between now and the next meeting, just letting you know.
Okay. All right, if that's all we want to do with the regulation changes, liaison reports, Mr. Sadie's not here. Subcommittee reports, we sort of just did it. Approval of minutes. I have a motion. Second. Mark, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Seeing none. Chair's report, nothing except I'd like to, have each of us put a little bit of focus on if they have an interest in, specific ways to address the affordability, then we'll keep discussing it. And that's it from me. And staff report?
None this evening.
Thank you. We're adjourned. Motion to adjourn without exception.